Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the show. So, obviously, the federal election is now well underway, with all of the parties talking about economic recovery and housing and putting forward their plans. And so, what are some of the major parties' plans to deal with the housing market and to move us out of COVID-19 economic recovery? Well, I have three candidates here with me to discuss that. So, joining me now is Adam Van Koverdan. He's the Liberal candidate for re-election in the riding of Milton. Philip Lawrence is the Conservative candidate for re-election in Northumberland, Peterborough South, and Amy Norman is the NDP candidate for the riding of Labrador. So I'll start off with obviously many people are saying that economic recovery from COVID is an opportunity to implement new programs. The NDP give examples such as pharmacare or universal dental care. So Adam, I'll start off with you. Do you believe that the economic recovery is an opportunity to implement programs such as pharmacare, dental care, or just what are some other steps that you would like to see and that the Liberal Party would like to see taken to make our economic recovery smoother?
Well, thanks, Wyatt. I think you posed some great examples of important aspects of our economic recovery. Just yesterday, I was actually at a training site for dentists for foreign qualifications certification. So that's dentists, doctors, pharmacists who come over to Canada, immigrate here with qualifications. And one of the aspects that I'm really excited about is making sure that those foreign qualifications are easier to achieve so that they can get back to work quicker. The anecdote that they consistently use is that, a lot of doctors and dentists are driving Ubers in Canada when they could be earning quite a lot more and contributing more to the economy. So one of the most important aspects of our plan for a more resilient economy that I'm a big fan of is creating 1 million new jobs and restoring pre-pandemic unemployment numbers. The Liberal Party was really proud of the fact that our unemployment numbers were the lowest ever in Canadian history in 2019 before the pandemic hit. So we got to get back there, and I think the Liberal Party is well suited to help get Canadians back. Obviously, the government doesn't create all the jobs. We've got to create and produce an environment conducive to building jobs. But the other thing that I'm really excited about, just lastly, don't take up too much of your time, is the Canada Workers Benefit. This is an important thing that I've been looking at changing for a long time, actually, because the Canada Workers Benefit will provide an additional $1,400 per year for lower income workers, and it'll pull an additional 100,000 Canadians out of poverty.
Okay, Phil. So to pose a question to you now, the Conservative Party has been critical of the level of debt that the Liberal government has spent during the pandemic. So often giving the examples that they're leaving behind too much money for future generations. But oftentimes the Liberal argument to this is, and I've heard it from people like Sean Fraser and others, and it's just without these supports, Canadians would be in an even worse position because they didn't have the supports available to them. So what would be your response to that, and just why does the Conservative Party believe that the ongoing debt is a problem? Oh, seem to have lost him. Maybe if I can just go on to Amy now quickly. I'm going to ask a question about the debt and the deficit. So how big of a problem do you think our national debt is, and what are the NDP proposing to lower the debt and to reduce our national debt?
Yeah, certainly. I think, our national debt levels to a certain extent are worrisome. But at the end of the day, the NDP plan and our commitments to Canadians are all about, ensuring that life is better for everyone. So to pay for some of these programs and different things that we have in mind to make things better for everyone, we plan on raising our revenue through new, fair, and progressive taxation sources. So, not just going further into debt, but actually raising our revenue with new sources, closing tax loopholes, ensuring the ultra-rich pay their fair share, ensuring that internet giants, so tech companies like Facebook and Google, pay their fair share here in Canada. And it's through these new ways that we're going to be able to, invest in stronger social programming and really building back a better economy for everyone, one that works for all Canadians.
All right, Phil, I don't know if your internet's back up. The Conservatives have obviously been critical of the national debt that they say the Liberal government has created, and that the Liberal government has left behind for future generations. So, just why is the national debt, in your view, an ongoing problem, and just how can the Conservative Party fix it? I mean, Aaron O'Toole has said that he'll balance the budget in 10 years without making any cuts. So just how is that possible, and why is this national debt such a problem?
So first of all, let me show you this. We've got it right here. It's all online. Look at that handsome fellow there, Aaron O'Toole, Canada's recovery plan. And you know what? One thing, Wyatt, I've been really excited about, and I have to give credit both Amy and Adam with both their answers, is that this election so far has really been about policy. I think the mudslinging has been kept to a minimum. There's always a little bit, but it's been kept to a minimum. So really credit to all the major parties, including the Liberals and the NDP, for making it about policy. And so when Conservatives, and it's actually kind of fitting, my internet went out because one of our key drivers is that by 2025, we want to, of course, have high-speed rural internet. And I'm at my home in Orono. You can see the lovely stone home behind here, but these stones are not so great for the internet. And so we have, like, I had to, during the pandemic, actually go to my constituency office because I couldn't get decent internet service at my home, which was not ideal because obviously we were supposed to be locked down. But for virtual parliament, I had to actually go to my constituency office. So one of the things we want to get accomplished to drive the economy is get that rural internet. When we look at the debt and the deficit, the challenge is, you know, it's not about dollars and cents for us, it's about people. And if in fact the deficit continues to grow, we're at one point, or the debt, I should say, we're at 1.3 trillion. And we supported a lot of the measures that Adam, I'm sure, is going to talk about, whether it be the CERB or other benefits. But we need to go forward in a way that's fiscally sustainable. We're not asking to balance the budget overnight. That would be impossible without drastic cuts. And we don't want to do that. We actually want to increase the funding in healthcare by over $60 billion. That's a 6% year-over-year driver increase. So that's phenomenal. But we've got a plan to do it at a reasonable pace 10 years out. And the reason why you want to do it, Wyatt, is, and you're probably getting to know this, as you get an allowance, or as Adam or Amy has balanced their family budgets. You know what? If your credit cards are to such a level that the interest is eroding other things, that means that there's not money to pay for your kids' education. There's not money to pay for healthcare. And so we need to make sure that we balance the budget on a reasonable course over the next 10 years. And that's our plan. And I'm really proud of it. So that we can make sure that we're not saddling you. Right now, we're at $40,000 or $50,000 that why you already owe the federal government. We need to make sure that growth is limited going forward. So because it gets to a point where it's just not fair putting all that debt onto you, Wyatt, and onto, you know, my son JT and Maggie. And so we have an ethical obligation to the next generation to make sure that debt doesn't crowd out their future.
Adam, you've just heard some comments from your NDP and Conservative colleagues on the issue of the national debt and deficit. So maybe just talk a little bit about the national debt and deficit, and just a bit about the Liberal plan as well to help reduce the debt, because obviously it is a problem, and eventually it does have to get solved. So just what are some things that you would like to see and some steps you would like to see taken?
Thanks, Wyatt. Our approach to dealing with the debt and the deficit is all about growth and making sure that our economy continues to grow at a sustainable pace and we invest in the right places. One of the most important ways, one of the most exciting things that I think a lot of parties have been talking about and advocating for many years is investing in subsidizing universal childcare across our country so that it's $10 a day or less. Quebec has had $8 a day childcare for a decade now. And the implications of that on the economy in Quebec are very, very clear. Women can get back to work without having to absorb extraordinarily high costs for childcare. It actually has really positive impacts on the social development of youth, according to many studies as well. So if women can get back to work sooner after having a child, and we can get back to having a double income from two parents, and I don't want to be too normalist about family structures and stuff, but when women have to stay home because of they're overly burdened by $5,000 a month childcare costs. There are not that many families that can afford that. So subsidizing it is a great way to grow the economy, and I'm looking looking forward to implementing that here in Ontario. One of the things I'd say with respect to deficit and debts and this conversation in Canada is that I think all too often we use comparisons like credit cards and mortgages to describe national debt. And I don't think that's fair. I think it's important to recognize that national debt is a lot different than personal debt. And while it needs paying off, and definitely we need to focus on, on paying off debt, we also have to recognize that national debt's a lot different than credit card debt. One of the reasons is because our country inflates every year. We grow. There's a little bit of inflation every single year. So the country of Canada literally prints money every single year to account for that. We also control interest rates, and we have a Fed bank. And it's more important that we address the debt to GDP ratio, which is actually the relationship of how we grow, how much we grow, and how much we owe. And that actually represents the burden of the debt on Canadians. And our plan is to ensure that the debt to GDP ratio consistently falls with good growth and reasonable inflation over the next 10 years. And that'll contribute to the economic mobility, upward mobility of Canadians, as well as a reduction in the burden of the debt.
All right, Phil, and so I'm going to move to a new topic now on housing, which is obviously a big issue as well during this election. And so in terms of, your party released their housing plan a couple of weeks ago. So maybe just take a moment to outline some of the main points of your party's housing policy, and just why you believe your party's plan is best, and why it's better when you compare it to the plans of the other parties.
I apologize, Wyatt. I'm going to do what politicians should never do in a debate, and especially to my friend Wyatt. But I just wanted to briefly respond to what Adam said. And so I would fundamentally disagree. And in fact, the challenge is that we can inflate, and that's actually what has happened. Inflation is out of control. We're at 3.7%. And what that means is the cost of everything goes up. If you've been to the grocery store, strawberries have gone from $1.99 to $3.99. And when the Prime Minister said, and I say this with love and respect, when the Prime Minister said, "Forgive me if I don't care about monetary policy," he was basically saying, "I don't care how unaffordable life gets for people." And so we cannot inflate our way out of it because it hurts our pensioners. I can't tell you how many senior citizens I went at the doors who are struggling to get by because life has become unaffordable because we've had too loose a monetary policy. So if no one on this panel is old enough, certainly not Wyatt. And I don't believe Amy or Adam either. I believe I might be the oldest actually, but to remember the 1980s. But we ran a thing called stagflation. And what happened there is because we let monetary policy go wild, we ended up with mortgage rates of 18-20%. We had inflation rates out of control. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And I kind of outspoke. I'll take back. I didn't say inflation's out of control. We're on a trajectory to get it out of control. And I apologize, I overstated there. But if we let that happen, well, because of the way that we have so much debt, both provincially, individually, and federally, it would be substantially challenging. And so we can't let inflation, and we certainly can't let interest rates grow dramatically. And with respect to housing, I'm back on topic here, Wyatt, is that we have a great plan, a plan to build 1 million homes, right? And you know what, ultimately, it'll be a partnership between the private and public sector. Quite frankly, how far we are behind, and Adam would know this because he's got relatives down here. In my riding, we've got a 0% availability, or a 99.9% occupancy rate in Northumberland, Peterborough South. And so the government just simply does not have enough resources to build enough homes by themselves. And so what we need to do is we need to encourage and incite and send the private sector to build homes. And like I said, we've got that plan to build over 1 million new homes. So we'll certainly the government will do their part, but perhaps just as importantly, if not more importantly, we will work with the private sector to get those homes built, get people in houses. And the other part of it is the number one real estate holder in Canada right now is the federal government. We've got a plan to sell some of those properties to make them available for affordable housing and other things like that. So yeah, that's my answer there. And sorry, Adam, I couldn't help but engage on that there.
I do just want to bring Amy into the conversation. So obviously, housing's been a big issue. You've mentioned you haven't knocked on a whole lot of doors yet, but with the doors you have knocked on, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing in regards to housing, and what are some things that you personally believe could help solve the issue of housing in your riding and across Canada?
Yeah, so my riding is pretty unique. I'm in Labrador. We have a really interesting mix of like super rural, super isolated, super northern, but we also have some, regular small towns that kind of look just like the average small town across Canada. And I've been hearing, no matter what part of my riding you're in, housing is an issue. How it manifests as an issue is a bit different. So in the northern communities like Maine, you have overcrowding in housing, and you have poor quality houses with mold, a lot of the issues that you hear around across Indigenous communities and across northern communities. In other places like where I am in Happy Valley Goose Bay and in Labrador City and Wabush, you hear more about the lack of affordable rental units and the housing prices just ballooning. So all across, I'm hearing that housing is a massive issue. But I'm really excited that the new Democrats' plan is going to help people no matter what kind of your background is. So we have a really awesome and ambitious plan that's really going to make a difference in every single community. We have plans that'll help renters and homeowners and future home buyers. So things like creating over 500,000 units of affordable rental units, and with at least half of that being completed in the next 5 years. This is going to be done through partnering with provinces, with municipalities and co-ops, and with different social housing kind of operators and things like that. And this plan is also going to help create a lot of jobs. So, we plan on building all these affordable units, and it takes people to actually build them and to retrofit the older ones to make them, energy efficient and to safe to live in. So it's a really exciting plan. It's going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to create some good quality housing for people all over, no matter what people's situation or where they're living.
All right, Adam, and we've heard from your two other candidates here, your fellow candidates on their party's housing plans. So why would you kind of prefer the Liberal plan over the plans that your two colleagues have talked a little bit?
Why? You're assuming that he prefers the Liberal plan. What if he prefers a Conservative plan or the NDP plan? We don't know that for sure yet.
Let me burst your bubble, Phil. I prefer the Liberal plan because I got to contribute to it, and I'll tell you a little bit how I got to contribute to it. And I'm not going to take your bait, Phil. I'm not going to take your inflation bait. I won't talk about how 2020 was basically a deflationary period, and that a 3.6% inflation rate right now is a snapshot, not the average over the 12-month period of the year. But we can talk about that hopefully when we're both back in Ottawa, because I'm cheering for you. I can say that, right? You've got a good candidate, good Liberal candidate there, but I'm cheering for you. So our Liberal housing plan is the most ambitious. It's also the most feasible, and I'm proud of it because I got to contribute to it. I ran on a housing first platform in 2019 because I'm a proud co-op kid. I was raised in co-op housing, community housing with my single mom. My dad was always in the picture. I don't like to suggest that I didn't have a great dad because his name's Joe, and he lives in Peterborough, just north of where Phil's at. So, and I love my dad, but my mom raised my brother and I in co-op housing. So I've always been a huge advocate for co-ops. And I've been, anytime I had the chance to talk to Chrystia Freeland or Ahmed Hussein or the Prime Minister, I talk about the importance of making sure that co-ops are in the mix. And I heard my new friend Amy from Labrador talking a little bit about co-ops as well. But our housing strategy is threefold. The first is to unlock home ownership. And that's a whole bunch of strategies to make sure that home ownership is a possibility, more of a feasible outcome for more Canadians. That involves building 1.4 million homes. That includes some retrofits and some repairs as well. But it also includes getting to a down payment faster with a rent-to-own program, tax-free account to save up for your first down payment. And we're also going to make the first-time homebuyer program more efficient, more effective, and more flexible because, as the Conservatives have pointed out, it hasn't helped enough Canadians. So we want to make sure that it can, because it has helped quite a few people in my riding, because the whole first-time homebuyers incentive has a large city addition, and it goes up to $780,000. And that's great for my riding because there's lots of first-time homebuyers in the $450,000 range, and they've been able to access 10% of their home value through the CMHC or draw from their RRSP for tax-free. So it's been working here, and I hope it can work in more places across the country. The second aspect is to build more homes. Like I said, $1.4 million homes. We're going to give the cities more tools to build more homes. We're also going to build more not tax. We're going to build more not-for-profit homes, more homes that are rent-geared income, and we're also going to have a rent-to-own program. We're also going to help generations of families live together by introducing the multi-generational home retrofit and renovation tax, which is great for ridings like mine, where I've got lots of triple generation homes, lots of grandparents, parents, and kids living together. The third thing that I'm really proud of, we're going to continue to protect your rights and bring in some new regulations to protect home buyers through the process of buying a home. That includes banning blind bidding. So blind bidding is the process where a real estate agent can just ask for blind bids, and that happens sometimes here in my riding where the second bid is $100,000 less than the first bid. I find that fairly exploitative on the buyer. I know that a lot of real estate agents enjoy how much money it makes them, but that doesn't mean that it's right. And we're also going to establish other rights like a legal right to a home inspection, a requirement to disclose all of the parties involved in home ownership. In addition to all that, we're going to crack down on speculative buying and foreign buying by people who buy homes from overseas as an investment to rent out to Canadians. This is the big one for me, Wyatt. I don't believe that every time a Canadian pays rent, they should be paying off somebody else's mortgage. That's why I believe in more not-for-profit housing, more co-op housing, and more rent geared to income that the government should subsidize, because housing is a human right. And it's one of the biggest reasons that I ran, is because if more people had access to co-op housing, then more moms like mine wouldn't have to make the tough decision between kayak lessons and great groceries. My mom was able to afford both, and that's how I got to the Olympic Games. And since Amy's up in Labrador, I will acknowledge that the kayak that I used is an invention of the Inuit and many other northern peoples. And I'm very grateful to be able to use that boat as a white guy from Oakville to race a couple of Olympics.
You're welcome from my ancestors.
Nakamik or Kian Manuk. I don't know which Inuktitut you speak.
Nakamik, yeah.
And I'll just pose one last question. Hopefully this panel was able to persuade some of my listeners to vote for either one of the three parties. But for people who aren't yet persuaded, we'll start with Phil. Why should people consider the Conservative Party across Canada?
Yeah, we have a bold plan, that's over 160 pages that goes through and will secure the future for Canadians. So, one, we want to secure economic growth by bringing 1 million jobs back to Canada. We want to increase and support our healthcare system by increasing healthcare funding by over $60 billion. We have a plan that's fiscally responsible that will balance the budget in the next 10 years. We want to secure mental health by putting in a 988 number so that anyone's having a mental health crisis, they get the resources they need. This one's very important to me. I've had 2 people in my circle commit suicide during the pandemic. And so oftentimes it's a matter of getting the help you need right away, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, but now. And so anyone who's in a difficult situation, Conservatives make it so they just have to dial 3 digits and that help will be there. And other than that, I would just like to send out all the love in the world to everyone out there and know that they're loved. And thank you guys. And this was an awesome panel. Love the policy discussion. And this is how politics should be done, if I can be so bold.
All right, Amy, and same question to you. Why should people consider the NDP platform?
Thanks, Wyatt. I think our platform is really exciting and it shows a lot of courage. The NDP, we can really create the kind of future that, that is needed right now, where we take care of one another, we look after each other, we look after our neighbors, we develop that strong social safety net with things like national pharmacare and national dental care, good, affordable national child care, affordable housing, and just make sure that everyone has what they need to live their life and live it happily and healthily. I'm really excited for what we're doing. And I think, people are ready for another option. So I hope you consider it. And it was great talking with you all.
Yeah. And Adam, why should people consider the Liberal platform?
Thanks, Wyatt. And I want to thank my friends from the 2 other major parties for participating in this. And I couldn't agree more with my friend Phil that this is the way that politics should be done in Canada, and all the yelling and screaming and bickering and protest is fine, but when it gets, as heated as we've seen across the country, sometimes I think it doesn't benefit anybody. So I really enjoy. I think we should have more youth interviewing us, Phil, because sometimes when you and I are on Power and Politics, it gets a little bit more negative. But the reason that Canadians should continue to support the Liberal Party is because we have a plan to support Canadians, not just through any one initiative, but all of them. And if you look through our platform at liberal.ca/our-platform, it is an 8-part portfolio, which really focuses on all of the areas that I'm passionate about. We haven't talked much about climate change today, but climate change is something that needs addressing. And I was really grateful to see the former leader of the Green Party in BC and the former leader of the national NDP really say that the Liberal plan was by far the most. It received an 8 out of 10, whereas the other parties were falling a little bit behind that. Our plan for fighting climate change is by far the most ambitious and the most feasible. We also have a really, really effective and ambitious housing plan, which I've articulated already. We also are focused on moving forward on reconciliation with Indigenous people, fighting racism and discrimination of all kinds with a new bill. We want to build a stronger Canada through investments in healthcare, making sure that seniors are well taken care of. We also have a plan to focus on fairness and growth at the same time by taxing some of the biggest companies in the world, the largest banks and the big insurance companies that have profited off of the pandemic. I'm also really proud of the fact that our party is running on a promise of a wealth tax. It's something that I've advocated before. I'm also really proud of the fact that we have a $6.5 billion mental health strategy. I hear you, Phil. I'm just as passionate about investments in mental health, and I'm glad that it's in everybody's platform so that no matter who gets elected, we're likely to have a 3-digit hotline or quick number, just like 911 for mental health. Our friend Todd Doherty talked about it so much in the House of Commons that I think it really got the attention of Canadians, and it's a good plan. It doesn't have to be partisan. I think we need to have a 3-digit hotline for mental health crisis and for suicide prevention. Last but not least, our plan is the one that's costed. We put a lot of effort into this thing. It's a really, really good platform. We know exactly how much it's going to cost, and it's really, really responsible. So I'd encourage everybody to go to liberal.ca/our-platform and check it out, but certainly check out the other ones as well so we can cost and compare them.
All right, Adam, Amy, and Phil, thanks for joining me. And Adam, definitely, I'll be looking forward to hosting a climate panel as well as panels on various other topics. But again, thank you, Phil, Amy, and Adam, and it's been great talking with all of you here today.
White, amazing job, my man.
Yeah, you are the next Peter Mansbridge. This is incredible. Congratulations already.
Thank you.
This was a blast. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye, Wyatt.
Bye.
Bye.